All right, everybody, welcome back to RCT Creations for my definitive coaster ranking. So no roller coaster tycoon today, and it won't be a little bit till we see that back, although I do have a video scheduled. We are continuing the coaster ranking. So this will be episode 2, still kind of the first round-ish. So the way it works, I've ridden 251 coasters in my life. I put out a post, or 241, excuse me. I put out a post on YouTube that asked if you guys would be interested in seeing my definitive rankings because I have never actually sat down and done it before. So I found a biased order, which I will link in the description in case you guys do want to try it. So what I've done, the first episode I did coasters number 1 through 47 in the order I've ridden them. And now we're at 51 through 100. There were a couple that were left out in episode 1 from like a fairgrounds and stuff like that I knew would probably be placed at the bottom. And we're going on into this one. There are no coasters left out between 51 through 100. We have all 50 in there. The top 10 from each episode will be put into the championship round on Friday the 16th, I want to say it was. We're going to just double check that real quick. Yeah, it'll be Friday the 16th will be the championship round. But moving on, as I said before, they are in the order I rode them, so you'll see a lot of parks kind of in a row here. Our top 10 from the previous episode is Mamba at Worlds of Fun, Top Thrill Dragster at Cedar Point, Maverick at Cedar Point, Magnum XL 200 Cedar Point, Millennium Force Cedar Point, Renegade ValleyFair, Prowler at Worlds of Fun, The Beast at Kings Island, and Raptor at Cedar Point, and then Diamondback at Kings Island. So those 10 have made it into the championship round, and we are moving on into the second, basically, flight of coasters here. Getting us kicked off, we have Goliath at Six Flags Great America and X-Flight at Six Flags Great America. RMC Topper Track Coaster, B&M Wing Coaster. I believe X-Flight was the first B&M Wing in the United States. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. Goliath at Six Flags Great America is the second RMC Topper Track Coaster, behind only, I believe, Outlaw Run at Silver Dollar City. At least the second in the United States, I believe. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. If I get coaster information incorrect, please correct it in the comments. I hate leaving incorrect information out there. But starting this one off, I think this is a pretty easy option. Goliath, while very short, it's a phenomenal ride. It's actually, I believe, the second RMC I rode. The first one is in here somewhere in this list. An X-Flight, also, I believe the second wing coaster I rode, but this is a no competition for me. X-Flight's a longer ride, but both are pretty short, and that's a problem Six Flags Great America has. A lot of their coasters are very short, but it's going to be Goliath at Six Flags Great America. Moving on to Carowinds, so that's what the CAR stands for. I have the abbreviations for parks right here. I abbreviated Carowinds to CAR for Carolina. Some people would probably abbreviate it to CW, but I think Canada's Wonderland is CW. So Carowinds is CAR. Ricochet is their Mock Rides Wild Mouse. Flying Cobras is their Vekoma Boomerang. With Flying Cobras having the vest restraints, it's not the smoothest boomerang I've ever been on, but it's a decent ride. I think it's better than a Mock Rides Wild Mouse, so we got Flying Cobras here. My last episode took about 55 minutes, so I'm going to try to speed it up to try to cut maybe 10 minutes off, but we'll see how that works. Continuing with Carowinds, we have Carolina Cyclone, their Aero Looper, the first coaster to ever feature foreign versions. And we have Carolina Gold Rusher, their Mine Train. For me, this is an easy one. It's going to be Carolina Cyclone, and let me give you the reasoning first. So Carolina Cyclone Standard Aero Looper actually reuses the Vortex trains from Kings Island, which was in the previous episode. Carolina Gold Rusher, I do like mine trains, however, the trains for Gold Rusher are just awful. I mean, when I sit down, I'm a bigger guy, but when I sat down, it felt like I could barely fit on the seat. Like the seat was just so tiny in itself, and not even just like the space I had between the lap bar, but just the seat itself was so tiny. It's just an uncomfortable ride for someone of my size. It's definitely more designed for smaller guests. But we're going to go with Carolina Cyclone there. Afterburn versus Copperhead Strike. For me, this is easy. These are definitely in the upper echelon of coasters at Carowinds. Copperhead Strike being a Mock Rides LSM launch coaster, which is very focused on hang time. Afterburn being a B&M invert, an old school B&M invert, which opened in 1998. And it features the Werner Stangl special. I mean, it's very whippy. It has a batwing element, which is a half corkscrew into a half loop underground under what used to be their former like backup entrance, and then back up a half corkscrew into another corkscrew going the same, back up to a half loop into a corkscrew going the same direction it entered from. Phenomenal ride. It's going to be Afterburn, no doubt. Now here we go. The first of the really, really tough matchups we're going to see in this episode. This is where my coaster riding kind of hit the upper echelon here. We have Steel Vengeance, which was my first RMC I ever rode. Cedar Point against Fury 325 at Carowinds. Both absolutely phenomenal coasters. I'd be shocked if these two did not make it into the championship round, where we get to round out my top 50. Between these two, I mean, Steel Vengeance is incredible. It's a very long ride. Steel Vengeance is one of the very few rides I can wait 3 hours for and say in some way that was worth it. The problem for Steel Vengeance is I can say the same thing about Fury. The longest I ever waited for Fury was probably a half hour when I was down there, and I was in Charlotte for about 4 or 5 days, and I went to Carowinds nearly every single one of those just because it was something to do in the area. But between these two, I mean, Steel Vengeance absolutely is incredible. Love that ride. Man, this is one I wish I could make a draw, but I have to pick one. If I got to ride one right now, I would pick Fury 325. And the reasoning is not even necessarily I think it's a better coaster, but because it's been longer since I last rode Fury 325. I go to Cedar Point about once a year. This year I actually went twice. But Fury 325, it's been a while since I've ridden it, and I love this ride to death. We're picking Fury 325. Phoenix at Adventureland is a Mauer spinner, just an SC2000 standard layout. And then Sidewinder at a Busch Gardens. Sidewinder is an Arrow shuttle loop. I was in Colorado for a wedding, and I begged my parents to go to a Busch Gardens just to ride this. This is all I cared about. We ended up going. We spent like the $50 it was for entry tickets. It was closed right away because there was weather in the area. And in Denver, if there's lightning within, I want to say it was like 30 miles, they closed the park. So it was closed early. We got in line, got up to the top. We got on the train. The operator could not find a pen to sign off on the daily inspection. And then weather hit, and we had to unload as soon as he signed it off. So we had to leave. So we went and rode the SLC there, came back later in the day. After it reopened, got our chance to ride it, and then it went down for weather again. So we only got to ride 2 rides that day. We rode the SLC, and we rode Sidewinder. And this thing is absolutely worth it. And this is a dying breed, unfortunately, because I think the only other one in the US is Diamondback at Frontier City. And then there's one in the UK, Revolution, I want to say it was called. And I should know that. I'm an RCT channel. But between these two, it's easily going to be Sidewinder. The shuttle loops are crazy. It's like it pushes you off, you drop down, get insane airtime in the back through a vertical loop, and then you do the same thing again backwards. It's like they plugged 2 rides into one. With knowing Arrow, I'm surprised they didn't put a loading station on the other like end of the platform. But it's going to be Sidewinder. Now, American Thunder at Six Flags St. Louis against Excalibur at ValleyFair. I love American Thunder. Been to Six Flags St. Louis twice. I was underwhelmed by it the first time, although the second time I really enjoyed it. Ran out of time, only got to ride it once, so I've ridden it twice total between my 2 visits. And Excalibur at ValleyFair. Excalibur took a long time for me to ride at ValleyFair because I'd always visit during Haunt. And Excalibur closes during Haunt because of the location it's in. It's right next to their raft ride. And it's really just off by itself. So when staffing gets tight, it's really easy for them to just block off the tunnel that leads to it. And it just kind of sits back there by itself. There's been some rumors that this ride may not be around for a long time, but it survived to this point. Now, I really do like Excalibur. If you saw my previous video, if you saw the first episode of this series we've got here, you know I love Magnum XL200. And Excalibur is like taking Gemini and Magnum and you like mush them together, and then you just add in some weird, funky elements. Because you drop off the lift into like 4 trims, so it trims off a ton of speed. And then if you look at the first drop, Excalibur also opened in 1989 when Magnum did, and both of them featured 60-degree drops. With Magnum, it was a lot easier to fit a 60-degree drop in because you had an extra like 100 feet of space. Excalibur just kind of like shoves it in there somehow. And then you go into this weird jolty turnaround. There's a there's like an mini I-305 helix on it. There's an arrow triangle hill, and then the ride's over. It's so short, but what's there is insane. Like out of this world crazy. American Thunder is probably one of the more well-rounded GCIs there is. It's more compact. It's a clone, and I can't remember what the original one's called. I don't think it might be called Troy at Toverland, but I can't remember. Someone in the comments put that down there. But American Thunder is a clone of a wooden coaster in Europe. And American Thunder is actually a really good ride. If Excalibur was longer, I think I would pick Excalibur over American Thunder. But after my ride on American Thunder in early 2025, that's going to be my pick here. Now, Screaming Eagles, Six Flags St. Louis's like original wooden coaster. I mean, it was a record breaker when it opened. It was the tallest. It might not be the tallest, but it was definitely the fastest when it opened. But the boss, if you watch the East Coaster's POV of the boss, he describes this ride perfect. It hits the brakes and he goes, wow, that really is the boss. And for sure it is. Hated this ride the first time I rode it back in 2015. But I rode it in 2025, 10 years later. They tighten tracked the bottom of the first drop, so this thing absolutely flies. And it's the boss without a doubt. Ninja Six Flags St. Louis against River King Mine Train. Ninja's fine. I don't have any issues with it. It's not smooth by any means. It's an aero coaster that they started construction on, went bankrupt through, and Vekoma picked up the pieces and finished it. And River King Mine Train is just an old school style mine train coaster. Fun fact about these two rides, actually. River King Mine Train originally had two tracks. So there were two tracks to it. And then when Ninja was announced and built, they removed the other track of River King Mine Train. I really wish there's no pictures I can find. If someone in the comments is watching this video and is at this part specifically, if you have pictures of River King Mine Train when it was still two tracks, I'd really like to see them just because I'm curious how it worked and how it fit in there. But between these two, I'm probably actually going to pick River King Mine Train. I think it's one of the better mine trains I've been on. Ninja's fine, like I said, nothing really wrong with it, but the Sidewinder element right near the start of the ride is really jarring. So we're going to go River King Mine Train. Tempesto Busch Gardens Williamsburg was the first Premier Skyrocket 2 I ever went on. Has the comfort collars, although it sounds like Tigress at BGT lost its. So hopefully Tempesto will too at some point. Against a classic Batman the Ride clone at Six Flags St. Louis. The one at St. Louis is actually a mirror image of the original. And I was kind of underwhelmed by it the first time I rode it. The first time I visited Six Flags St. Louis was at the tail end of a monster coaster trip where we drove all the way to Virginia and back. So it was kind of like right at the end, and we were ready for the vacation to be over by that point. So my first visit to Six Flags St. Louis was kind of tainted by that. But between these two, I got to go Batman the Ride. Griffin at Busch Gardens Williamsburg and Verbolten at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. Verbolten's fine. I don't have any problems with it. The indoor section's pretty cool. I actually caught one of my closest friends off guard when the drop track happened because she hadn't experienced it and I had. And then Griffin at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. Phenomenal dive coaster. This is probably the best dive coaster I've been on. And that's going to be my pick there. Now this is tough. Grizzly at King's Dominion against Loch Ness Monster at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. Both of these have gone through refurbs recently. And both of these rides are great. Grizzly just got retracked by a Gravity Group, and they actually added height to the lift hill and steepened the drop. And it's running so well right now. Go ride Grizzly at King's Dominion. And then Loch Ness just got the vertical loops. Premier Rides actually built new sections of aero track for this ride. And they just retracked the iconic interlocking loops on this legendary coaster. They added a soundtrack or like voice lines to it that actually really add to it that I really like. But between these two, I think I've got to go Grizzly. Grizzly shocked me on my trip to KD in early 2025. It ran really well last year, but this year it's just a whole new level. I can't even say this year anymore. It's 2026. But it's just on a whole new level. It's Grizzly. Now here we go. Intimidator 305, King's Dominion Volcano, the Blast Coaster. That's right, I did get the chance to ride this one. And a lot of people hold Volcano in really high regard. It was cool. Unfortunately, I thought the coolest part of the ride was the queue line. Walking up the mountain into that overflow area was really, really cool because it was like carved out in the rocks. You sat through the overflows, which took forever because the throughput on this thing was awful. I think it only held like 16 people per train. And the launches were incredible. Don't get me wrong. The launches on this thing and launching out of the volcano was incredible. After that, though, it's 3 barrel rolls. Then you dive down, pick up a ton of speed, and slam into the brakes. I like Volcano. I do. But I-305 is a different monster. The 305-foot lift, the insane, and didn't ride it pre-modification, but the insane turn off the 300-foot drop, which makes you gray out, black out, and then the insane snappy turns that follow it. One of my favorite elements in I-305 after that first airtime hill is that fake out turn where it's banking left, levels out briefly, and then banks left again. That's one of my favorite elements ever on any coaster. And then I had family that were huge NASCAR fans, huge Dale Earnhardt fans in specific, and having his car out front when I first rode it in 2015, it just set this thing apart. And then let's not forget the iconic "Gentlemen, start your engines" before you dispatched. It never got old standing in queue because it played that every dispatch. And every single rider that catchphrase played, you could see them tighten their grip on their restraints as the cable yanked out of the station. It's I-305 without a doubt. Backlot stunt coaster King's Dominion, Avalanche King's Dominion. Avalanche more unique for sure. And then backlot stunt coaster, I've been on a different one. Kings Islands appeared in the first episode. Between these two, Avalanche, now known as Arachnidia, after the retheme for Jungle Expedition, although I wrote it before that. Between these two, I think I'd pick backlot stunt coaster. Not to say Avalanche is bad by any means, and it's unique. I'll give it that. It's the only bobsled coaster I've been on, but the hassle to get on it is kind of weird if you have I guess I can't really describe it in the best way. It's just kind of an awkward ride if you're with friends that you don't want to sit in the lap of, if that makes sense. So we're going to go backlot on that. Rebel Yell, now known as Racer 75 at Kings Dominion. Like I said, I write them down as I rode them, so it's still called Rebel Yell in this list. Although I do understand the reasoning for why it was changed, and I'm not opposed to that name change. Between these two, though, it's going to be Valraven at Cedar Point. And then Cedar Creek Mine Ride at Cedar Point. I did not ride that on my first trip, which is why it's appearing now. And then Desert Storm at Castles and Coasters in O.D. Hopkins rides, much like Busch Gardens, which I mentioned earlier. Had a couple friends that had a wedding in Arizona, and I just happened to be like, hey, we should stop at Castles and Coasters. Because at my home park of Adventureland, they had an O.D. Hopkins looping coaster. And would you believe it or not, the local park in Arizona has an O.D. Hopkins looping coaster. Between these two, I think Desert Storm is the better ride, although I actually don't mind Cedar Creek Mine Ride. It has that classic aero jankiness. It opened in the 60s. It's a steel coaster that opened in the 60s. But we gotta go Desert Storm here. In Vertigo, Kings Island. Adventure Express, Kings Island. Adventure Express, spoiler alert, is my favorite mine train. It's not close, and that's gonna be my pick here. Kings Island's Bat against Kings Island's Red side of the racer. I'm going to pick the Bat. Now, this is the ultimate pick'em for Six Flags Great America right here. Goliath, phenomenal ride. But Raging Bull with the pre-drop in row 9 is crazy. And then you add on the fact that Raging Bull is such a long ride. I think it's somewhat close, but I don't think it's that close. It's Raging Bull. Flying Cobras, the Carowinds Boomerang with the vest restraints against Superman Ultimate Flight at Great America. Both of them are clones, although one of them is a much better clone, and that's Superman. Carowinds Vortex, the B&M stand-up against the Carolina Cyclone. I don't mind either of these rides, actually. I didn't mind Carolina Cyclone, and Vortex kind of was okay. There's a lot of people that don't like Vortex at Carowinds, but I think as far as the traditional B&M stand-ups go, the smaller version of them is actually the best. I didn't find the headbanging on it too bad. I'm actually going to pick Vortex in that one. And this one's a no contest. Hurler Carowinds. Well, I don't think it's as bad as some people do, and I actually am kind of happy they're keeping it around. It's Afterburn, no doubt. It's Copperhead Strike, no doubt, but against Hurler. Now, Fury 325 against the Carowinds Intimidator, or I-232 as some like to call it, now known as Thunder Striker. It's Fury, no doubt. Intimidator, while solid, it's a solid ride. Steel Vengeance is an elite coaster. Lich Garden Sidewinder against Dragon Slayer at Adventureland. Dragon Slayer is a 40 free spin by SNS. And from what I've heard, Slayer is the best 40 free spin in operation right now because it does spin. I've been walking by this at this park, and you'll see the night side or even the squire side sometimes hit the set of trims that start making it spin, and this thing just goes wild. My problem with Dragon Slayer, I've had rides where I've spun 12 times. I've had rides where I've spun 0 times, so it's just not a consistent ride. And because of that, my one ride on Sidewinder to Lich Gardens was insane. That's what we're going with. Although if you're making me pick between Phoenix at Adventureland, not the Knoebels Phoenix, Phoenix at Adventureland, and Mauer Spinner SC2000, and Dragon Slayer, we're picking Dragon Slayer. Mind Eraser, our first SLC on the list, the Lich Gardens edition, rode this once in row 9 before weather shut the park down. An American Thunder Six Flags St. Louis. I didn't hate a Mind Eraser. I think a lot of people rank it as one of the worst SLCs, actually. But in row 9, it wasn't terrible. But it's definitely American Thunder there. Excalibur, no question about it. River King Mine Train against the Boss. It's the Boss. Screaming Eagle against River King Mine Train. If I'm basing it off my trip in 2025, I would actually pick River King Mine Train. However, my trip back in 2015, Screaming Eagle was kind of a diamond in the rough. We rode it row 1, and while not smooth, it did deliver some pretty excellent airtime. So that's going to get my vote there. Ninja, the Vekoma Aero Hybrid looping coaster against Batman the Ride. Easy choice. Tempesto BGW against Ninja. Tempesto, we're going to go with the Skyrocket 2. And now I have a pretty difficult battle here. Griffin and Apollo's Chariot. This one might be unpopular. Apollo does have that B&M pre-drop on the Hyper. It's one of only 2 coasters that has it, and the other one's also in this same list between my 51 to 100. But my problem with Apollo's Chariot, it doesn't provide, at least on my last rides in 2024, did not provide me great airtime outside of that drop. And even the drop on this one's not as good. The drop on this one in row 9 is not as good as the one on Raging Bull. It's not close. And Griffin in row 3 with the traditional B&M over the shoulders, crazy. So I'm going to pick Griffin there. Although Apollo is better than for Bolton. This one is actually pretty tough. If it was in the past, it would not be, but Grizzly is just that good. Alpengeist, also pretty insane. If there's any ride that I think tries to rip your feet off, it's this. I mean, Alpengeist is absolutely crazy through the first half, but it trims off a lot of speed hitting into the second half, whereas Grizzly's second half is where it gets better. So that's going to be my choice there. Loch Ness Monster Alpengeist, that's going to be Alpengeist. Although, again, guys, I love Loch Ness Monster. Alpengeist in row 9 trying to tear, or I guess row 8 trying to tear your feet off is pretty crazy. I-305 Anaconda at King's Dominion. I am a pretty big fan of old school aero loopers. I said that multiple times in relation to Vortex at Kings Island. Anaconda, unfortunately, does not fit that bill. I thought it was kind of an odd ride. The curve drop, loop, sidewinder are okay. Trims all the speed off into that weird set of turns, which I think kind of fit the name Anaconda pretty well, but was very jarring. The corkscrews delivered some good hang time, but the pacing on this one is just so weird. And I-305 with its theming was phenomenal. I got to ride it as Project 305 as well. I was at King's Dominion in early 2025 during their Password preview to ride Rapterra, where it had now been known as Pantherian, but it was not ready yet. So but it's I-305 without a doubt. Volcano without a doubt there. Backlot at KD against Dominator. Dominator is a really good floorless coaster. Some people complain about the rattle in the second half, which it definitely does have one. There's no doubt about that. But I think Dominator as a whole is a really good ride. Solid B&M floorless. Valraven at Cedar Point against Rebel Yell, the north side. It's going to be Valraven there. Now, this didn't happen in the first episode. We did have Gemini Red versus Gemini Blue, but this one... So here's where I'm going to base this off of. My last trip to King's Dominion in March of 2025. One of the days I was there, they had Racer 75 North open and Racer 75 South open. The south side was running one train, the north side was running two. And that is going to be my basis for that pick. And here we go. We got another elite coaster right here. That's right, I said it. Monster at Adventureland is an elite coaster. If you haven't ridden it, try to go ride it. Desert Storm Castles and Coasters. O.D. Hopkins Looper, kind of the quote-unquote perfected version as much as you can of the Hopkins Loopers. Monster at Adventureland is an elite ride, though. This is not a competition between these two rides. It's head and shoulders going to be Monster over Desert Storm. The Bat and Adventure Express. This is closer than some people think. I think a lot of people would pick the Bat, but it's kind of annoying to walk out to the Bat. And while I do love the ride itself, I love the theming of Adventure Express. I actually kind of liked it more prior to when they updated like the entrance and everything like that. I kind of liked like just the forested entrance where the sign that just said Adventure Express. Whereas they did a good job matching it with the area it's in, but I do miss the old entrance. Kind of off topic, but it's going to be Adventure Express here. But the Bat going to annihilate in Vertigo. The Racer going to annihilate in Vertigo. Back to Six Flags Great America in Gurney, Illinois. Superman Ultimate Flight is good, but Raging Bull is better. Goliath is better. I will take Superman over X-Flight. That might be unpopular, but I like the Superman clones a lot. Flying Cobras at Carowinds against X-Flight. That one's pretty easy. Carowinds Vortex against Afterburn. Not close. Afterburn, an elite tier invert. We're going that way. Copperhead Strike over Vortex. This... I don't think it's going to be unpopular. I like Vortex, but I don't hate Hurler. I think it kind of it serves its purpose all right. I don't think it's the worst wooden coaster on the planet. I don't think it needs to be RMC'd. If they add a different wooden coaster at Carowinds, sure, why not? But that's all you got. And it's solid for what it is. It's not horribly rough. They've done actually a lot of good TLC on it in recent years. We're going to go with Hurler there. As much as I love the elite moments of Sidewinder to Lich Gardens, there's only three moments. There's only three elements on the ride, period. And Fury 325 is like it's B&M's magnum opus. There's no B&M better than Fury 325. And then Steel Vengeance going the same way. We'll take Intimidator at Carowinds as well because it's a complete ride. This one's kind of a challenge, but again, the boss is so good. There's another wooden coaster that's going to appear pretty late in this list. It's actually going to be on the last pre-championship group, and Boss gave it a run for its money. You probably know which coaster I'm talking about. It's at a park in Indiana, but the Boss gave it a run for its money on my 2025 trips. The Boss it is. Screaming Eagle Six Flags St. Louis against American Thunder. If it was based off of 2015, I'd pick Screaming Eagle, but American Thunder actually did impress me a lot in 2025, so we're going American Thunder, and I am going to pick Excalibur at ValleyFair over Screaming Eagle. This one's tough. I've ridden Screaming Eagle more, so I think that's the way I'm going to go. Minder Racer is fine. The SLC layout is actually really good. If you can find an SLC that's not horribly rough, the layout on these things is actually like really, really good. It's just a matter of they don't track. The older ones, anyway, do not track well at all. I heard Great Nor'easter at Maury's Piers. Have not ridden that one. But I've heard since Vekoma came back and retracked it, it's amazing. An amazing ride. And I actually really liked Minder Racer, and I think I'm actually going to lean that way on that pick. This one's kind of interesting. Griffin at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. Batman the Ride Six Flags St. Louis. I love the Batman clones. I like this Batman clone too. Griffin at Busch Gardens Williamsburg, just the presentation of this ride is pretty hard to beat. So I think that's the way we're going to go. I think we're going to go Apollo's Chariot as well, although Batman is going to beat for Bolton. And between these two, I'm going to pick for Bolton over that. Now this one, kind of a challenge in recent years. If you base this off my first visit to Katy in 2015, it's not even close. But as of 2025, Grizzly's an amazing ride. I can't even think of a better way to say it. It's an amazing ride. But I-305 is going to take the cake there. And now Grizzly is going to shine out over Volcano the Blast Coaster. If you're going off the first visit I had, it's Volcano, no doubt. But as of recent trips, it's Grizzly. Alpengeist is a better ride than Volcano was. I'm going to say it now. Loch Ness, I think, is a better ride. At least I prefer Loch Ness. I should say it that way. I can't definitively say if a ride is better than the other. I prefer Loch Ness Monster the Volcano, especially after the updates it's gotten. I like Loch Ness a lot. Dominator KD against Valraven at Cedar Point. I don't mind Valraven. It's fine. I don't think it's the worst coaster at Cedar Point in comparison. I guess a lot of people don't think that, but they think it's near the bottom. And it probably is, but not because it's a bad ride. It's a really solid ride. The general population really seems to love it. It always has one of the longest lines at the park. But Dominator is a complete ride. It has the classic over the shoulders, which I actually tend to prefer over their newer vest restraints. So we're going to go Dominator there. Although I will pick Valraven over Backlot. I'll pick Batlot over Rebel Yell. I think I'll pick Avalanche over Rebel Yell as well. Adventure Express, my favorite mine train. That being said, it is a mine train. And Monster is an elite coaster. Can't compare. Although I will take Adventure Express over Desert Storm. Desert Storm's such a weird ride to place because I rode it multiple times, but I've only visited the park once. But I think I would take the Bat over Desert Storm as well. Although I will take Desert Storm over the Racer at Kings Island. I'll take the Racer over Cedar Creek Mine Ride. I'll take Mine Ride over Invertigo. I've ridden Invertigo twice. The first ride I had was terrible. The second ride was just okay. But we're going to go Cedar Creek Mine Ride there. Now this is a tough one. Two elite rides here. Raging Bull, an elite B&M Hyper. Afterburn, an elite B&M Invert. And this might be kind of an upset pick, but I love Afterburn to death. It's so whippy. It's so intense. But what Raging Bull has going for it is its long duration. In Raging Bull, I hate to say it, but I think Raging Bull's at a better park. Of all the classic Six Flags parks, I think Great America is probably the best of the ones I've been to. And Carowinds is good, but it just doesn't feel as complete as Great America does. But that being said, we're not picking park, we're picking coaster, and I'm picking Afterburn. Between Raging Bull and Copperhead Strike, though, we're going Raging Bull. Between Copperhead Strike and Goliath, I do like Copperhead Strike, but I like Goliath more. But I would take Copperhead Strike over Superman Ultimate Flight. Take Ultimate Flight over Hurler. I take X-Flight over Hurler, but I would take Hurler over Flying Cobras. I'd take Vortex over Flying Cobras. I'd take Carolina Cyclone over Flying Cobras, but I would take Flying Cobras over Carolina Gold Rusher. My apologies, guys. I'm trying to get through this video a little bit more timely manner than the previous one, but it's probably going to be about the same. Ricochet, Carolina Gold Rusher. I think we'll go with Ricochet, the Wild Mouse. This is tougher for me than I think for a lot of people would look at it. The Boss lived up to what it could be when I last visited Six Flags St. Louis, but Fury is just so hard to beat. Same thing with Steel Vengeance. Those rides are just so hard to beat, though I would take Boss over Intimidator at Carowinds. And I think I would take American Thunder over Intimidator at Carowinds too. Intimidator at Carowinds is like Diamondback, but just not quite as good, is the best way I can phrase it. And American Thunder is a really solid GCI, so we're going to take that. Oh, man. I'm going to make it seem like I really don't like Carowinds Intimidator, but I do. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It does its purpose. And I think it would have stood out more had Fury not existed. But Excalibur, again, my description of this ride is just so perfect. It's Magnum and Gemini squished together with just some weird elements. And it's so short, but what's there is so good if you like what it provides. So we're going to go with Excalibur. Intimidator is definitely better than Mind Eraser, though. Sidewinder was better than Mind Eraser. Dragon Slayer is inconsistency is what makes it so hard to place these free spins, because a good ride on Slayer is a million times better than Mind Eraser, but a bad ride on Slayer is probably about equal to Mind Eraser, which is, I think, answers my question there. Phoenix Adventureland against Mind Eraser. I'm going to pick Mind Eraser there. I'm not a big fan of Phoenix at Adventureland. I'll take Screaming Eagle over Phoenix. Heck, I'd take River King Mine Train. I'd take Ninja. Not a big fan of Adventureland's Phoenix. I-305, King's Dominion, Griffin, Busch Gardens. No contest. It's I-305. It's going to be Grizzly. And it's going to be Alpengeist over Griffin at BGW. And in a little bit of a surprising turn of events, I think we're going to take Loch Ness as well. Although, I think I will take Griffin over Volcano. The airtime in row 3 of Griffin is pretty darn good. And it's really, really good. The row 3 airtime is insane. I think I'd take Apollo over Volcano too. I don't dislike Volcano, but I think the way it was torn out, I think really overestimates how good it really was. Again, it just doesn't... The 2 launches are great. Shooting out of the volcano is great, but it just doesn't do much after that. So we're going to go with Apollo. I'm going to take Batman at St. Louis. Although I will take Volcano over Verbolten. But I would take Verbolten over Anaconda. I would take Tempesto over Anaconda. Now, this is kind of a battle of, like, mid. If you had asked me this 2 years ago, I probably would have said Anaconda, but... recently, I'm going to say Ninja. I do kind of miss Anaconda at King's Dominion. Like, it was missing when I was there in 2025. But we're going to go Ninja. Dominator against Monster. Again, Dominator, a very good coaster. Monster is an elite coaster. The hang time on this thing is unreal. The fact that my local park got a ride this good still, like, blows my mind. I mean, Monster is a really, really good ride, guys. If you can. The Des Moines Airport's not far. If you can find a flight into Des Moines, I think it's about a 30-minute drive to Adventureland from there. Give it a chance. Really, seriously, give that a chance. Adventure Express Dominator. I gotta go Dominator. I gotta go Valraven over Adventure Express. I would take Adventure Express over a backlot stunt coaster, though. I would take the Bat over backlot. Probably would also take Desert Storm over backlot. And these are really held down by the amount of theming they have working. And in recent years, it's just been horrible. Kings Island's had a lot of the effects working when I first visited, but even now, that one doesn't have a lot. It's really funny, because the last time I went to King's Dominion, they didn't even play the effects at the midway point. It just, like, continued to coast through. But I think that just really sets these back. The layouts on them are actually pretty good, but just the fact they haven't held up at all under the Cedar Fair regime. Like, I bet they were pretty cool when Paramount first opened them, but they don't hold up anymore. Racer at Kings Island, I think I'd take over Backlot, although I would take Backlot over Cedar Creek Mine Ride. I would take Avalanche over Cedar Creek Mine Ride. Rebel Yell at KD against Cedar Creek, I would probably take Rebel Yell, both north and south. Now, this is tougher than it looks. I loved Afterburn a lot. It's old school versus new school B&M. Afterburn, definitely my number 2 at Carowinds behind Fury 325. Steel Vengeance, I would take over Afterburn. Ooh. This is pretty tough, too. I feel like I really need to ride Afterburn soon. I might try to make a trip out there in 2026. But the Boss really impressed me in 2025. We're going to go with the Boss. But I will take Afterburn over American Thunder. Raging Bull over American Thunder. Goliath over American Thunder. Copperhead Strike, I'd also take over American Thunder. Would take Superman. Would not take X-Flight over American Thunder, though. I won't take X-Flight over Excalibur. I'd take Intimidator over X-Flight. Although, with Sidewinder, again, it's 3 elements total for the entire ride with a huge, like, break in between while it resets and pushes the train the other way. X-Flight's a complete ride. I'll take that. I would take Hurler over Sidewinder. I will take Sidewinder over Vortex, though. Again, with Dragon Slayer, it's so inconsistent. If you could get a consistent good ride on Dragon Slayer, I would take it over Vortex. However, you can get bad rides on these SNS free spins too. Dragon Slayer less so because it feels like it's allowed to spin more. But like if you go over one of those Raven turns and you're like stuck upside down, it really makes your head hurt. Because of that, I gotta go with Carowinds, Vortex. I would take Carolina Cyclone as well. However, I would take Dragon Slayer over the Flying Cobras. I would take Mind Erase over Flying Cobras as well. No headbanging because of the vest restraints, but Flying Cobras just was not smooth for a boomerang at all. I'm really glad I didn't have to ride it with the first iteration of Train. Screaming Eagle, Six Flags St. Louis against Flying Cobras. Based on my first ride 10 years ago, it would be that guy. River King Mine Train, Flying Cobras. I would take River King. Ninja, Flying Cobras. Probably take Flying Cobras. Ninja, that Sidewinder on Ninja is just so hard. It's just so bad. The rest of the ride's fine, but man, that Sidewinder's not good. I would take it over the basic Wild Mouse though. Now this one's kind of interesting, right? Traditional Wild Mouse, spinning Wild Mouse-ish. I know the Mauer SC200s or 2000s are a little weird, but I would take Ricochet. If Phoenix did not slow down so much at every mid-course, I'd like this ride a lot more, but every time Phoenix at Adventureland it feels like it's about to pick up speed, it slows down. And that's my problem with it. If it spun more and you didn't slow down every 2 seconds, I'd pick Phoenix, but we're going Ricochet. I will take Phoenix over Gold Rusher though. That was rough. Now this one for me is easy. I have a friend of mine that also would think this is easy for different reasons. But for me, it's Intimidator 305. Pantherian, Project 305, whatever name you want to call it, it's the better ride. And fortunately, my buddy, this is an easy choice for me as well. I love Monster, but Grizzly is crazy after it got retracked and added height. Alpengeist and Monster. This is probably just biased because I've gotten to ride Monster so much. I love the ride, but since it's at my home park, it's hard to like, if I walk by it and there's a 15-minute wait, I probably won't even wait for it because it's just like, I don't want to wait that long for Monster. And it's a great ride. If you're visiting like from out of town and this is like your only chance to ride it. It's a really good ride. But for me, I'm picking Alpengeist. I love Loch Ness, but I've got to pick Monster there. But in the battle between Busch Gardens Williamsburg Old School Looper and the more modern one at King's Dominion, originally opened at Geauga Lake. Actually, Flying Cobras did too. I gotta take Loch Ness for the theming elements and the interlocking loops and just visually. Both these rides are visually stunning when you get to the parks. I love Dominator, but I gotta go with Loch Ness. However, I would ride Dominator over Griffin. This is easy. Griffin and Valraven. It's easily Griffin. It's not close. Apollo's Chariot, Batman. This might ruffle some feathers as well, and I'm sorry for our Volcano lovers, but I'm going to pick Valraven. I will take Volcano over Adventure Express, though. They kind of like... That's kind of an interesting matchup, because they both kind of have like the same idea, just with different themes, when Adventure Express had its original entrance. But Volcano is definitely the better ride. Between Verbolten and Adventure Express, speaking of rides that kind of have similar concepts, Verbolten's okay. I don't have any problems with it. It does what it does fine. But as far as mine trains go, I think Adventure Express is the gold standard, so that's what we're going with there. The Bat at Kings Island, Verbolten at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. The top of my head, I feel like I'd pick the Bat. Off the top of my head, between Desert Storm and Verbolten, it's going to be Verbolten. Tempesto is fine for what it is. The new gen Premier trains aren't great. They're really, really cramped. I haven't seen the ones for Alpenfury yet, but I will take Desert Storm over Tempesto. I'd take the Racer at Kings Island over Tempesto. I would take Backlot. I would take Avalanche. I would take Rebel Yell North and South. Cedar Creek Mine Ride, I can't place over Tempesto, though. I can't put Cedar Creek Mine Ride over Ninja either. Even with Anaconda, I just can't do it. Now here's a really, really good matchup. Of all the Giga Coasters, I'd say on average, these are the top two. If you asked every coaster enthusiast, everyone who's ridden both of these rides that is a coaster enthusiast, I'd say, or everyone that's, of all the enthusiasts that have ridden like at least 4 Giga Coasters, these are probably going to be the top two in about 75% of them. I-305 is crazy for what it is. I mean, you have that 300. The only 2 times that ride goes over 100 feet are the first, like the lift hill and the first drop, and that second airtime hill. Everything else is so low to the ground and compact and just rapid fire, back to back to back. Fury does somewhat the same thing, but it spreads it out a little bit further. And I love Fury, but Intamin is my favorite manufacturer. And again, the theme of I-305. I'm curious to see where I'll stand. I mean, theming does do a little bit for me. It's not the biggest thing in the world. But for me, it's I-305. The layout is just crazy. You'll never see something like I-305 get built again. And I love Fury, but it's I-305. And between Grizzly and Fury 325, it's not close. It's Fury. Between Vengeance and Grizzly, it's Vengeance. I actually might take Grizzly over the boss. And I think I will. Although I will take the boss over Alpengeist. A battle of 2 old school B&M inverts. Alpengeist is the biggest one at like 198 feet. And when I say this thing tries to tear you to shreds in the first half, I'm not kidding. It really does. Ride this thing in row 9. It tries to separate your torso, your feet from your lower body from your upper body. It tries to tear your feet off. But Afterburn is just such a good ride. It's got everything together. There's no mid-course brake run on it. One of my problems with Alpengeist is it trims off so much speed halfway through the ride, and understandably so. But Afterburn has no mid-course, so I mean, you take all the momentum from the first drop all the way through, and there's this nice little lull. And some people complain about this for Afterburn with pacing, but Afterburn has a nice little lull near the end of the ride, right before the final corkscrew, where it just kind of goes on a down drop and a bit of straight track. I think it's just enough for you to kind of get your bearings back before it takes you through one of the whippiest corkscrews ever. So I think we're going to go with Afterburn here. I would take Raging Bull over Alpengeist. Goliath is too short. If Goliath was longer, I could see taking Goliath over Alpengeist, but it's too short. For what's there, it's elite. It has the best stall ever, but it's just not a long enough ride. And same thing against Monster. I like Goliath. It's just not long enough. And it also runs the first generation RMC trains, which are a little more cramped than the second gen ones that like Steel Vengeance, Iron Gwazi, Wildcats Revenge run. I'm not the biggest fan of the first gen RMC trains. I gotta go Monster. I will take Goliath over Loch Ness. I will take Loch Ness over Copperhead though. And I think I'm gonna even take Dominator over Copperhead. Although between Griffin and Copperhead, I think I'm going to take Copperhead. Griffin, probably the best B&M dive against a standard. I'd say Superman is probably the standard B&M flying coaster. I'm going to take Griffin. Laying in the flying position is just so weird. And it's fine. While you're on the ride, it's fine. But once you like stack on the brake run, if it's running 2 trains, if any of these things are running 2 trains, it's just such an uncomfortable feeling to me that it kind of detracts. And then it's a fun ride. It does what it's supposed to do really well. But I gotta go Griffin. Griffin is probably the gold standard of what a dive coaster should be. The Apollo's Chariot's it's a good hyper coaster. It's solid. And then this is like the basic layout. And you have Superman Ultimate Flight, the basic B&M Flyer, basic Six Flags B&M Flyer, and the basic B&M invert for Six Flags. I'd take a Batman clone. And then between Valraven and Superman, I'm taking Superman. I'd take American Thunder over Valraven. I'd take Excalibur over Valraven. I'd take Intimidator at Carowinds. X-Flight and Valraven. I'll take Valraven here just because the vest restraints are the more updated version. X-Flight's vest restraints lock after it dispatches from the station, and they just get really tight and try to like crush your shoulders a little bit. And it's not horrible by any means, but it does do it, and Valraven doesn't. And Valraven is a solid ride. Volcano over X-Flight. Adventure Express over X-Flight. Although I'd probably take X-Flight over the Bat. Hurler at Carowinds against the Bat. I think I'd take the Bat. And the reason I say that, there's another coaster I've ridden that has a very similar layout to Hurler that just executes what Hurler tries to do way better. And the funny thing is, Hurler was based off of that ride. And if you know what it is, and you've ridden both, you know what I mean. I'd take for Bolton. I'd take Hurler over Desert Storm, though. I'd take Sidewinder over Desert Storm. I'd take Vortex over Desert Storm 2 and Carolina Cyclone. Dragon Slayer, Desert Storm. It's kind of funny because Dragon Slayer replaced Dragon at Adventureland, which is also an O.D. Hopkins coaster. Desert Storm's more consistent, and just for that, I gotta give it the edge. Between the Racer and Dragon Slayer, it's gonna be the Racer. Backlot Stunt Coaster. Between Avalanche and Dragon Slayer, though, Avalanche is a longer ride, but I think I'm gonna take Slayer there. I would take Avalanche over Mind Eraser, though. Racer 75 North against Mind Eraser. It's definitely going to be Racer 75 or Rebel Yell. Both north or south. Tempesto Mind Eraser. I'd take Tempesto over that. I think I'm going to take Ninja as well just because it's unique. Kings of Mania Anaconda against Mind Eraser. This one's kind of difficult, but I think I'd lean towards the SLC there. Same thing for Screaming Eagle. River King Mine Train. Flying Cobras at Carowinds against Anaconda Kings Dominion. I'm actually going to go back to the Arrow here. I'm not a Flying Cobras fan. Even with the new vest restraints, it's just not smooth. It's really, really, really rough. I can't even say three reallys. I just say it's rough. It's not really rough, it's rough. There's no headbanging involved, which is fine. But I'd take Anaconda. I think I'd take Cedar Creek over Flying Cobras as well. Now this is perfect right here. This is perfect. In Vertigo, Kings Island, Flying Cobras, Carowinds. Just for uniqueness, I think I'm going to go in Vertigo. And my second ride on it 2 years ago, excuse me. No, it was last year. It was 2025. Actually wasn't terrible. I didn't hate it, although it is really awkward. I sat on the back seat, I think, but staring at other people that you don't know. Like if you're with a group of friends, it's kind of fun. Like the concept is cool. But if you're riding with two strangers looking at you, it's kind of odd. But I would still take in Vertigo. And that will do it for our second lineup. So let's take a look at our final rankings and see where we get. Moving on first to our championship round, of course, is going to be Intimidator 305 at King's Dominion. Later known as Project 305 and now known as Pantherian. Going to take the number one spot of our second flight. Free 325 taking up the second spot. Not surprising at all. Both of these rides are so good. But unfortunately for Fury, my preferences definitely lean towards I-305. Steel Vengeance taking up number 3. Grizzly taking up number 4. It's surprising, but it's not. If you've ridden Grizzly in the year 2025, I think that actually kind of makes sense. That thing is crazy nowadays. The Boss taking up number 5. That's not a bad placement for it. The more I think about it, I'd probably flip-flop Afterburn and Raging Bull above it. But the Boss taking up number 5. That's respectable. Afterburn at Carowinds taking up number 6. Raging Bull number 7, so it will be moving on. Alpengeist will be moving on. Monster at Adventureland will be moving on to the championship round. And Goliath at Six Flags Great America will be moving into the top 50 round as well. And that will round it up. And I think that's a good group from this 50 to take to that spot. And we're going to have one heck of a final round. It's going to be pretty tough to decide. And there are flaws to the way I'm doing this, but at the same time, I think I'd rather do it this way than just sit down for 6 hours and like sort through everything. Maybe some point I'll do that. If you're interested in that, I can do that. But there's our group that are moving on. Continuing down the line, Loch Ness comes in just outside of the top 10, so it will not continue. Dominator, Copperhead, Strike. These all are kind of fitting about where I expected. Nothing too surprising here. A Volcano at number 22 of the 50. That might be kind of surprising to some people. Adventure Express, decent as well. X-Flight. Is there anything surprising to me in here? I don't really think so. Dragon Slayer at 34 is pretty low, but it's also so inconsistent of a ride. Phoenix at Adventureland coming in at 49 is kind of interesting to see. I don't think it's that bad, but just against the matchups it had, it didn't fit in there very well. Ricochet, Carowinds, just one above. Ninja, Six Flags St. Louis. So I think this list fits pretty well. You have some of the bottom feeders here. Anaconda at Kings Dominion wasn't great. Mine Ride's not great at Cedar Point, although I don't think it's that bad. I'd be kind of disappointed if they removed it. If they do remove it, they definitely need to replace it with more of a family coaster, which might, the way Cedar Point fans can be, they might not be too happy with it. But I think it would need to be replaced with something like that. But yeah, there is the roundup there. So where's our top 10? They will be moving into the championship round. If you've made it this far, thank you very much for tuning in. I will see you on Friday with flight number 3. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I will see you in the next one.